And coming up today on the MartyMariner Show, yes, it has been a hot minute since we were here doing a recording, but do not panic. We have dusted off all of the microphones. We have fired up the Commodore 64, and I have brought in three absolute legends to the MartyMariner showroom to come and have a chat. We're going to have a talk about the Central Coast Mariners season to this point. We're going to have a chat about the 5 games that are coming up if we have any aspirations of playing finals football this year. Have a bit of a detailed chat and look into that. We're also going to talk about our first 11. Who would we pick from the back line, the midfield, the forwards? We're going to have a bit of a discussion about that one as well. Looking forward to hearing what the boys say about this. So let's get this show rolling and get it started. It's the MartyMariner Show. And welcome back to the MartyMariner Show. And I said I had some legends on the show with me today, and I was not kidding. And you can see them right now, right in front of you, of course. First of all, Mr. Dan McCamley, Coast FM 963, the football commentary team. Dan, how are you doing, my mate?
Very well, thanks, Marty, and welcome to everybody else tonight. Thanks for having me on. It's an absolute pleasure to join you guys again. And, getting to the business end of the season and strap in. I think it's going to be a bumpy ride.
Absolutely, mate. We might have to double up on the seatbelts with this one, but we will talk about that very, very shortly. He is the voice of Industry Group Stadium. I'm still getting in the habit of saying that. I'm going to call it Central Coast Stadium during this. Don't worry about it. Also with the Coast Football Ramble Pod, and also NPL, New South Wales. He is the new Simon Hill. Pete Pryor, how are you, mate?
Yeah, very well. Thanks for the kind words, Marty. You can just throw all the way back and keep it as Graham Park for the traditionalists, if you like. I think I'm going to keep rolling with that one personally.
We'll go with it. I'm always happy to call it Graham Park. And this fellow, well, he's the boss of the ballroom. He's the hero of the hip hop. He's the sensation of the salsa. For the Cancer Council New South Wales, he's taking part in Stars of the Central Coast, which we're going to hear about a little bit later on this evening. Mick Morley, how are you doing, man?
I'm well, mate. Thank you very much. It's great to be here with the other boys, and just got back from dance practice, so I'm a little sweaty, but I'm right to go, mate. Bit of a pre-run.
Absolutely, mate. Warmed up and ready to go. Love to hear it. Love to hear it.
Yep.
But boys, the show tonight, I strictly just want to talk about the Mariners, which is obviously what we're all here for anyway. But it's that point of the season. We've had an international break, which we'll want to talk about too a little bit later. But I just want your views on how you've seen this season so far. And Dan, I'll kick off with you. The season so far, it sees us in the top 4, which if you'd have said at the start of the year, we probably would have gone, yeah, that's cool. Just in your view, mate, where have you seen this season gone to this point?
Yeah, look, I think the season was absolutely outstanding up until January. The January transfer window came along. Not only did we lose Garang, obviously he's the massive loss, but there's a fair bit of squad turnover as well. I think counted maybe 5 outgoings and 5 incomings. I think that really had an effect on the team, and since then it's been a little bit rocky, up and down form. They were outstanding against MacArthur out there in Mudgee. And then either side of that, a couple of really average performances. We were there for the Western Sydney Wanderers game. Nick Montgomery did something I haven't seen him do in the 18 months, 2 years he's been there. He changed his formation. He played one up top. It didn't work. They were poor that night. They rebounded against MacArthur, and then they were poor last week as well. So I think they've probably got enough points in the bank to make that top 6, but they're going to have to find some of that early season form, I think, to really give this title a shake.
Absolutely. And we'll talk about the points that we've got and what we might still need to put in the old onion bag to keep us in that top 6. Pete, do you agree? Was New Year's Eve? I know we had a win. Was that the turning point though? This January onwards?
I'm not sure turning point necessarily. I think we did some pretty astute business in the January window, obviously with the acquisition of James McGarry, Christian Theohoris as well. I don't think we really lost all that much. Did it have a destabilising influence on the squad on the whole? Maybe. Has that pointed to a downturn in form? Perhaps. It's hard to really put your finger on one particular reason. I think maybe the boys are maybe a bit mentally fatigued at this stage as well. A lot of the guys that have come through, they've been maybe playing above themselves, and came out started the season like a house on fire. But we haven't really put together a performance like we saw in that 4-0 demolition of Adelaide back in January. Outside of the Mudgee game, we've had a couple of wins, but we've really ground them out. So yeah, it's as you said at the start. If you offered me fourth at the start of the season, would have shaken your hand off for that. But it's so tight. We're only 6 points inside or 6 points away from dropping out. So, yeah, need to really, really, really come home strong in the last 5.
Absolutely. It's certainly squeaky backside time. Mick, obviously we've got to think maybe the World Cup as well, that break. Ultimately, can we look at that as being a good – because we were on a pretty decent run pre-Christmas. I mean, we sort of hit it up pretty well. Did that World Cup just not help us? And how do you think the season's gone as a whole?
Yeah, look, possibly the World Cup. You could probably nearly put it down to the season before when we were on a roll and COVID got us. And just before Christmas, we were absolutely smashing it. And then we had the COVID break. We were due to play Wellington or something. We would have smashed them and we went for a slide then. A little bit same. I'm not too sure about the World Cup break. One stat I think you'll probably find, we haven't travelled well. Unless we've travelled to Mudgee, we really have not travelled well. Wellington did us, Perth did us, like this hoodoo down in, like seriously, Victoria last. I mean, they're a good side, let's face it. But they played us off the park, I thought. I mean, we were ordinary. We went to Brisbane, we won in Brisbane. I think that was a 2-penalty game or 3-penalty game or something. So definitely haven't travelled well. Which for us in the past hasn't normally been a problem. I agree with the boys. It's sort of been up and down, hasn't it? And the problem we've actually got is that how you look at it. Teams that we did all right against and how we were travelling above. Now you've got the Wanderers and Adelaide that just seem to be building and building and building. My money's actually on Adelaide, mate. I think they're the team. You can keep Craig Goodwin's just a freak. He is just magnificent, mate. If there's a guy that takes better free kicks and corners anywhere, I'd like to know it is because he's just. I watch him every time he does that. It's danger, So we got that. We got those two teams. I think that are going to really, be pushing us down, so to speak. But like I said, we're a little bit up and down. I don't think we've really gelled again. I mean, obviously, Mudgee was pretty good, but before then, I said we went down to Melbourne. That was like we did the voting for the Damien Brown medal. I didn't even vote. I couldn't be bothered. I went no, and it's a shame. Like the boys don't. They're giving it to. But I'll go back to my original thinking. I think I spoke to Pete probably at 11 o'clock in the Irish pub on Saturday night in Mudgee. And he didn't agree with me, I don't think. I can't remember, but I don't think he agreed with me. I struggle with I struggle with a midfield. I like a midfield general, and I don't. As much as I love the boys, I like a good, strong midfield general, and I think that shows sometimes in the big games.
Yeah, and we'll have a bit of a chat about that a bit later down because I think there are some choices and decisions that need to be made for these last 5 games to be put together. Dan, I know we're talking the Melbourne game when we went down. Monty stuck solid with the boys that had done the job in Mudgee. In hindsight, everyone goes, oh, yeah, well, should have started them. You can see the reasoning behind sticking solid because Mudgee was a great performance, right?
That's correct. I don't blame Nick Montgomery for sticking with that side because the performance against MacArthur after going down a goal was outstanding. And I think for players like Dan Hall and Cam Windus, Dan Hall especially hasn't had the best of years. I thought that was probably one of his better games this year. Cam Windus came in and did a great job against MacArthur. And you've got to reward that, I think. I think if you were to then just go straight back to a Brian Kaltak or a Triantis who'd been overseas, I think it was important for Nick Montgomery to reward those players for their good performance and give them another bite at the cherry. Now, hindsight's 2020, and it didn't work out. But I've got no issues with Nick Montgomery doing what he did. Yeah, I would agree with Mick. I think the midfield is an issue. I'm not sure it's more the lack of goals from midfield. The one thing I was most impressed about the performance in MacArthur was Max Ballard got forward and he looked a threat going forward, and he got into the box and could have had a goal himself, won a penalty, laid on a goal for our Scottish mate up top. We haven't seen that from the Central Coast Mariners midfield probably since Ollie Bozanic left. And then sort of hoping that Max Ballard would continue on that. It just never happened against the Victory. He never got forward, and they were just stuck in the mud. So I'm sure Nick Montgomery, look, there's 5 games to go. He's going to have to go to his A team. I'm sure he knows his best 11 come this point of the season. And I think you'll see that this weekend against Brisbane.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to hearing from you guys what you actually think that best 11 might be made up of. Pete, one thing I actually heard more, I know we all talk about this whole Melbourne trip thing, winning in Melbourne, winning it. I, for the first time, actually heard players officially through TV and everything start talking about it. Has it got to the point where they're just listen to it now and they're just like, it must be just Melbourne? Is that where it's at right now?
It certainly feels that way. Yeah. As someone who speaks to the players, it's definitely in the back of their mind. It's kind of getting to the point now as a fan as well, where it definitely feels like, we didn't get the win. That was the opportunity to get the win against what has been a very poor Victory side this season.
Yep. And
to go out and turn up or not turn up, as the case was, and put in that kind of shift is uber disappointing. I know the boys were definitely reeling from it themselves as well. And I think it definitely plays a factor mentally.
Yeah, absolutely. And Mick, do you think it was more the poor performance skill-wise on the pitch, or just mentally were we just not there? Or was it a bit of both?
Well, I heard Monty with Steve-O on the Saturday morning before the game, and Steve mentioned it to him. And apparently the last time they ever won there was when Monty was actually on the field. It was the last game, and he said, it's not an issue for me. I mean, I win there. So, but look, you can fob it off. I don't know that. Like I said, Melbourne's a funny side, aren't they? You look at the team and you think, they can't be last. But I don't know, that was a weird game. Our passing game was terrible. I mean, we strengthened up the defence, I think, when Cowtack came on and stuff later on. But in general, the passing and the movement off the ball, it was below par. And that can't be just a Victory hoodoo. That's just a poor game, a poor game. It was like I said. Well, I watched the mini match again to try and do the 3-2-1s, and I went, no, I'm not interested.
Yeah. Pretty hard to pick. It was pretty hard to pick.
It was,
But yeah. But do we think now too, though? So let's sort of look at. We'll put the table up and have a look. Can we pretty much agree? City, Adelaide, and Western Sydney. I mean, they're all 3 of those comfortable. I don't think we need to look at those guys. Now we're sitting in 4th with 31 points with Wellington. If you drop all the way down to Victory, who are on 21, there are only 2 wins outside catching Sydney, who are sitting in 6th spot. I think between Sydney and Victory, there's 6 points between the rest of every single game from now on in. These last 5 games is going to mean something in the competition. Dan, does that play into our hands in some way that basically teams will be taking points off each other rather than catching us? Because someone essentially has to have a really good run to be able to overtake us, right?
Yeah, look, we've got a 6-point head start, don't we, on that 7th and beyond. So, look, I think a win this weekend against Brisbane and then knocking off the Newcastle Jets in the run-in, I think that 37 points is probably enough when you consider that other teams are going to be playing each other and taking points off each other. And none of those teams have been consistent all year. You look at Sydney FC, they've been up and down. Newcastle up and down. Western United were horrible to start the season. They've probably turned a page. They might be the dark horse to sneak into that top 6. But, yeah, the Victory are interesting. And I said it before the call. they might be last, and as you said, they've got a red hot team. And you go through their side 1 to 11 on paper, they've got quality all over the park. They've also got that catch-up game to play from the Melbourne Derby that they're behind in that, so they'll start behind in that. But they can get a positive result out of that, turn that result around, go up to 24 points, let alone games. It's very, very tight for that 6th spot. I think so long as the Mariners do the job against teams like Brisbane and Newcastle, which I would fully expect them to, I think they're safe. But it's a real flip of the coin for that 6th position. I think Wellington are probably safe as well. But yeah, from Sydney FC down, I think anybody can make the finals from here.
Yeah, and it's pretty easy. To go through who's playing who around us too. There's some massive games that are being played, and luckily for us, there's a lot of teams who are playing City and they're playing Adelaide, they're playing West. So you would expect they're probably going to drop some points here. Pete, I know it's a real cliche about this is a must-win. We've got to get this one. We have to beat Brisbane on Saturday for a chance, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to be all doom and gloom and say if we don't get the win on Saturday that it's all over. Just call it now, it's done, sort of thing. But it and thrown to another cliche, it's a 6-pointer. Every game here from here on in is a 6-pointer, and for me, we absolutely need to have this wrapped up before we travel to Adelaide in the final rounds, because I'm just having some dark flashbacks about Adelaide away at the moment.
Yep, I'm hearing you. Yep. and let's have a look too, because after Brisbane, we play Western away, and who knows against Western. I mean, we've got a Mariners side that could go down there and absolutely play them off the park, and we've got a Mariners side that may not play them off the park. So that's very much an unknown. We then play Melbourne City at home. It's Pink Shirt Day, which I saw the pink shirts, the Cancer Council all came out today, which is fantastic. Look great, guys. But that is going to be a tough game because City are going to be in the mix. They'll want to hang on to their first spot. Let's not kid ourselves about that. We then go away and play an F3 derby in Newcastle. And if you think they're going to want to let us get any points, you're kidding yourself. And then we go to Adelaide, as you said. So to me, these next 2 games in particular are absolutely vital. We pick up these 6 points. Mick, the talk amongst the boys, they must know this. I mean, I know people say, we don't really check out the table and all this. They do. But they must look ahead and think, we've only got 2 home games left. We're playing the team coming second last. We were pretty poor last time around. This has to be it this weekend, right?
Yeah. I think this is getting to the nuts and bolts of it all, isn't it? Because if you don't, you're going to put yourself under a little bit too much pressure. I've got real concerns, as Pete said, and our last game is at Adelaide. Boy, that could be massive. That could be a really massive game. That could be, if things don't go right, it could be a season-deciding game. The Jets, like you say, and then we've got, the pink round, we've got City. They're not going to come up here and think this because of the pink round they're going to go easy on us. Yeah, I think, as the cliche too, the destination, it's in our own hands, and I think probably again, it's just one game at a time. We can't worry about anyone else. We just need to do what we need to do, and basically that's get wins or get draws when we're maybe away and against a better side. But I think again, looking back, I think we've been one of those teams this year that we seem to bring ourselves down to the lower team again. That old thing too. That I think we've sort of really, haven't put teams to the sword of too many times that probably should have been to the sword. Okay, we did MacArthur up there, but yeah, I don't know whether they've got the killer instinct sometimes. It just doesn't seem to keep coming through for us. And I think like I said, one game at a time. We got to take it out of anyone else's hands and just keep it in our hands. That's it. But the boys, I was at Baker Street this morning and saw Chef Dan. He was having all the team was coming in today for lunch. And I'm not talking about school. It was an interesting scenario. It's just a team, no staff, no managers, no coach, no assistant coach, no physio. An unusual scenario. Just the boys to go in there because they trained at the stadium today, and just to go in there and have lunch without the hierarchy around. So that might have been a little bit of a blow a bit of steam up, have a bit of fun, have a chat, and I think Chef Dan was going to telling about how good he cooks and how good they can play football.
And then they all took off to McDonald's, so go figure. all fun with that. Let's just play devil's advocate. Let's just give ourselves fourth spot. Dan, who's going to finish 5th and 6th this year?
Look, I think Wellington probably sit inside that top 6 come the end of the season. They're another team that's up and down, but they've got that massive advantage of playing home games in Wellington. So I'd expect them to pick up points over there and probably sit in 5th. 6th position, as I said, it's up for grabs. Sydney FC, I think they miss. I don't think they make that top 6. I'd probably look at a team like Western, who they started the season so poorly, defending champions. They were on maybe 1 point after about 5 or 6 rounds. So you take that into account and where they're sitting at the moment. That to me says that they've hit a bit of form at the right time of year. So I think Western might be the team that sneaks in. But as you said, any team can go on a run. That's the beauty of the A-League and how tight it is down the bottom there. There's no easy beat this year. In past years, you've had teams really, really struggling. Even I don't rate Brisbane personally. Even they're or thereabouts. If they get a win this weekend against the Mariners, they throw themselves right into the mix. So it's really up for grabs. If I'd have to throw a dart at a board, I'd pick Western, I think.
Okay. And Pete, where are you at?
Yeah, look, as Dan says, it's so tight, isn't it? It's a toss of a coin. I think the 6 is probably set as it is. I think Wellington get that 5th spot for the same reason Dan alluded to there, with the fact that they've got 2 home games coming up. They've got a decent run home as well. They've got Victory at home, and I think Brisbane at home as well as part of that run home there as well. So you'd expect them to pick up points there, as well as travelling to Macarthur. You'd expect them to get points there. Sydney have 3 of their last 5 games at home, and they have a fairly comfortable run home. They've got Newcastle, Brisbane in there, Perth at home in there as well. I think it's going to come down to who wins the Sydney v Western United fixture, to who takes that 6th spot there. And
Mick, where are you at?
Well, that's a bit of homework I didn't do. I don't know who's playing who. But yeah, I'll get that dart for me, will you? It's hard. Look, I think there's so many anomalies with it. I don't know. I think if Newcastle had a great little roll on. They still scare me, Newcastle at times. I saw them play. Was it 2 weeks ago? I can't remember the game, and I watched the mini match. They were really good. Like we said, I think it's an open field. Hopefully we're 4th, and we don't care who's 5th and 6th. So, but I don't know. It's when you look at it, if you wanted to put a comp together and have a competition finish the way it is, you'd be really happy with the A-League, wouldn't you? To say, well, that's a pretty good comp. You know what I mean? Which is all good for the game, mate. So
absolutely. And I'm sure Paramount will be all over the coverage in those last couple of rounds that'll be coming to you, and everyone will be glued to their TV sets. That won't be. Yeah. Anyway, we'll move on from there. Look, let's just jump back into Marinerville. I want to talk about our back 4, because we've had, through suspensions, we've had through international duty, injury, we've had a number of changes. And I had a look through from basically from the New Year's Eve game, the different combinations. We've very rarely seemed to have the same combination of 4 through different reasons. So if I was to put to you guys, okay, give me the back 4 for this weekend, being who you think is our best back 4, where are you at? Dan, I'll kick off with you.
I mean, Storm Rue has been a mainstay in that team all year. And
yep.
Considering where he came from, Lewis Miller took that spot off him essentially. He's fought back and really turned his career. It looked like his career might be done. Like, let's be honest. It looked like he'd lost that spot. He's put in a really good shift this year, Storm Rue. He's been an absolute rocket right back. The central defence is the hardest. McGarry goes to the left back. He's been outstanding since signing. And I think he's definitely in front of Farrell. I'm not sure on Farrell's health status and if he's going to be available. And that's the tricky thing, because he played a couple of games at centre defence and played really, really well. Indeed. And he's a natural left footer.
Yep.
if he was fit and playing, I'd be inclined to play him on the left side of central defence. And it's probably harsh on Triantis, but I think I'd have to go Kaltak.
Yeah.
I think I'd go Farrell and Kaltak in the centre of defence as my central defensive pairing. That's obviously hoping that that Farrell's fit. Triantis comes in. I think Dan Hall's been too inconsistent this year. Windust is more of that guy to come on and fill in when needed. But there's plenty of options for Nick Montgomery in that part of the field. I think the back four he's going to go with, we'll see it on Saturday night.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I'd be happy if Kai Rolls came back, because I'd be more than happy to have him back.
Oh, me too.
But Pete, it's if you'd have told me that at the start of the year that Farrell might not be making that left back spot his own, I would have gone, wow, really? But McGarry's absolutely come in and just taken that position off him. But I agree with what Dan said, that Farrell played quite well in the middle. But mate, your back four for this weekend.
Yeah, the full-backs are a lock for me. As Dan said, Storm Roos going through a real renaissance of sorts, I suppose. A renaissance, I don't know.
But, he got another year contract. Did he get another year? I think we had
I think he's extended. Yeah, so McGarry, what an acquisition, what a pickup he's been as well. So absolute lock at centre-back for me. Faz, hearing is recovering pretty well. So if we see him... maybe a chance we see him this weekend. He would be my starting centre-back based on his couple of performances there. And I'm going to go with out of Kaltak and Triantis. It's Triantis for me. Kaltak just showing his inexperience at the professional level a little too often for my liking, and that's obviously cost him in terms of the cards that he's got, the suspensions that he's copped as well as a result. He's done some fantastic things as well, but for every 10 good things he does, there's a mistake or an error that sees him picking up a card. So Triantis for me is probably the best young centre back in the league, and I want to see him keep growing in that role there as well.
Absolutely, and I totally agree with what you're saying about the brick wall of Gosford, but those red cards. I mean, I know the club put out a bit of a social during the week with him going to the photocopy with the red cards. I know we kind of play on it, but it's also frustrating because there's a player there and the guy can hit tackles and play really well, but do you think that the fact that he is capable of getting that red is going to play on Monty's mind coming into these big games? We don't want to be playing with 10 players, right?
Yeah. And I mean, if he gets another one, I think it's a 3-game suspension that he'll be looking at as well. So, we don't want to be without him for potentially finals football as well. He's no doubt is a fantastic player, and to do what he's done in his first season of professional football is nothing short of astounding. Just the way that he's lunged into a few of these challenges, of course, makes the referee have to make a decision. And it's obviously now a decision that Monty has to make as well.
Absolutely, and I think that he's now in that unfortunate position where reputation is going to go before him. So there's going to be those 50-50s, and they're never going to go his way, which is hard. And attackers and midfielders are going to know that when they're running at him. So it's a very tough spot. Mick, who makes up your back for me?
After that conversation, I just remembered another conversation we had in Mudgee with about Triantis. That's just come back to me.
This is good. This is like therapy.
It was. I can remember Pete's comments in Mudgee now. It's all just come back to me. Yeah, look, I think the problem with Tautek is that it's when in where a couple of these things he's done, a couple of tackles he's made that actually has got him red cards. He's in a situation where he didn't need to do it. That's the bit that worries me with maybe, as we'll call it, professionalism. It's probably not the right word, but his judgment. And then one was, I know, at the end of it, like in just the edge of the box and had to be made, but a couple of them were, mate, you don't need to do that there. That's the inexperience. That's what we can't afford to probably take into games. Stormy fan. Stormy's had a second lease of life. I mean, we watched the games pretty regularly with a group of mates, and they weren't too happy with the Storm signing and what he was last year, but he's been outstanding. McGarry's just a gimme. He gets the shirt first. Look, I'm a Dan Hall fan. I don't know what it is, whether he hasn't had enough game time. I thought him and Caltech work all right together. As Pete said, Triantis is quality, young quality. You know, you're talking centre backs and stuff. It's hard to put experience into a really good player as well. And those sort of positions need experience, and that's, I think, where we've been caught out. I've had a look at a lot of the goals we scored, and this is another conversation we had. So many goals are scored by the team getting out wide and just a cutback. Danny's left exposed. They've been simple paths, like training goals. And we can't do that if we're going to go into semi-finals. And I spoke to Danny about it too, and he goes, it's the way we play that exposes ourselves to that, right? Because we're pushing forward with the backs and stuff. That's fine, but if that's the case, we need to be better in them areas than when it breaks down in the transition, you know. So look, that's a hard question. I got McGarry one side, I got Storm the other side. I'd be happy to see Hawley in there. I'm a Hawley fan. Caltech, maybe he could come on a bit later to freshen up, but Triantis, and I'm not too sure what's going on with Faz, but Faz come into the middle, and Faz did a great job. I think Danny praised him last time he did it, and so yeah, I just think that whichever way we go, they've got to be a little bit smarter, I think, in some spots, you know.
And look, as co-president of the Dan Hall fan club as well, Mick, I'm very happy with your selections there. I am the first to hope that Hawley rediscovers that form that he had last year, and you know he'll unashamedly admit that he hasn't hit the heights that he hit last year so far this season. If he rediscovers that form, he's a lock again at centre back for me.
Yeah,
100%. There's more talent in that fella than half the centre backs we've had in the past. So I'm totally with you on the Dan Hall train. So let's just shuffle forward a little bit in the field. Dan, the midfield. I mean, we can go with Cummings as a lock as one of those guys up front. Let's just take that as a gimme. I'm presuming he's travelled back and he's all good. We haven't looked the same in the midfield. And I think we touched on it earlier with Steely and Ballard. I mean, top blokes, work hard. Maybe not the creative part. We've missed Nisbet, maybe. But what's your thoughts on this midfield? Because it's so vital for us going forward. We've got, as you know, we get our goals from width. We attack really well out there. We've got to set ourselves up properly. What kind of midfield are you running with, or in attack, starting from Saturday?
Yeah, look, they haven't had that big-bodied midfielder that Mick's talking about since Stenson's left. He was a real ball-winning, dominant central midfielder, and they've just never really replaced him. Yeah. So now, basically every week, it's the two young fellas, whether it be Josh Nisbet and Ballard or Ballard and Steele, up against three experienced midfielders from whatever team they play, because that's what the teams usually trot out as a 4-3-3 or something similar to that. Some weeks they hold their own and are really good, and other weeks, that they struggle a little bit. I think for mine, I'm not sure he's probably had his best season, Josh Nisbet, but he's got to be the first pick in that midfield. He's so low to the ground, and he's able to hold on to the ball and beat people in close areas. I'm just not sure that Steele or Ballard have that ability consistently in them. Ballard, for mine, has taken over that midfield. I'd be going with Nisbet and Ballard. I think Ballard has been outstanding this season, capped off by that performance in Mudgee, where he showed me something that I hadn't seen before, and that was in getting forward. And I think the Mariners need that. I think they need that link between the midfield and the front two. You spoke about Cummings being a lock. Tulio's been outstanding as a visa player. Yes, he's missed some chances, but he's also scored some goals, and I think he's a really good partner up there with Cummings. But I think they missed that link in the midfield, between the midfield and the strikers. And I think Ballard could provide that moving forward. I think personally, he's outstanding. We speak to him after most games. He speaks so well. Yeah. He's really elevating his game up. If he sticks around, I think he's a future captain of the club.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, we're fortunate with all the young blokes that are in the club. I mean, that they always talk so well. They're just so positive, and they always up for a chat, which is fantastic. If you're going with Ballard and Nisbet, so who are the two guys you're going to run wide with?
I'm not his biggest fan. He's rocks or diamonds, but I think Nkololo's got to come back into that right-hand side of the pitch, only for the fact that I think Theo Harris has been much better coming on as an impact player. I think he's really picked up that Garen Quoll role, coming on with, say, half an hour to go and really impacting games, cutting in from that right-hand side. Silvera's been great all year. The goals have dried up for him. He's just starting to play a few more minutes. He would normally be that 60-minute sub, and you could tell how frustrated he was getting on the sideline by coming off after 60 minutes, even when playing well. The last couple of games, he started to play 80, 85, 90. So I think he starts out on the left. And geez, I don't know this player's status either, but I'd love to be able to bring somebody like Wenzel Walls off the bench. I think they just missed that attacking threat that Quoll offered, that ability to turn a game when things were going bad or when things were locked up. They just haven't had that since Quoll left. I think if you could bring somebody like Theo Harris and the Wenzel Halls on as attacking options towards the back end of the season, I think they'd be in good stead.
Absolutely. And I don't know if Mick or Pete have heard any different, but when I've sort of spoken about Dylan, all I keep getting is close with a smile. So take from that what you will. Pete, your four-man midfield, what are you looking at?
Yeah, look, 100% agree. Maxi's taken his game to a next level this season. Danny is spot on. He speaks so well. He's so polished, for such a young fella as well. Not many people know he's actually studying full-time as well. On top of being a full-time footballer, he's doing a double degree in business and economics. So he is a clever young fella. But good on him. Maxi and Niz start in the centre of the park for me. Maxi, I think, as Dan alluded to again, potential future captain. We saw it at the start of the season where he was captain in the FFA Cup. He was captain all throughout pre-season before Vuka came in as well. So, Monty's obviously already earmarked him for that sort of role. He does, of course, have overseas aspirations, as most players do. So how long can we keep on to him? Hopefully it's for another few years yet. And we do get to see that. His spatial awareness in the middle of the park for me is what sets him apart from a lot of other players in that sort of role. His vision, his scanning, his head's on a swivel. He's always looking, and he has this knack of just being able to create an extra couple of yards of space by knowing exactly where, if he's about to be pressed, shimmying one way, turning the other. It's so simple, it's so effective, but he pulls it off 99.9% of the time and is able to drive forward. In terms of wide players, Sammy, I think, has to start, and Benny probably comes back on the right as well for me. So probably the same starting midfield four as Dan had there. 100% agree that Theo Harris has his best moments coming off the bench. Mudgee aside, in which he was fantastic for the entire time that he was on the pitch there. You've also got Sash Kozewski, who comes on and brings fantastic energy out wide there as well. So, and I did hear Monty saying, just before Sash came on in Mudgee, we need more energy. Sash, kid up, get out there, sort of thing. So that's exactly what he's there to bring. You're right when you say Wenzel Halls, close. Very close.
Very close.
Very close.
Smile, close.
Yes.
It's funny because I rate Harry Steele. I just think he's a massive worker. I just think there's too much of his game which is the same as Ballard, and I just think that Nizzy just gives that difference. Nizzy has that time on the ball. He can find space. His passing ability is probably the most underrated part of his game. Everyone looks at him and goes, "Oh yeah, look at the little fella get in there and get stuck in." His passing is outstanding. He's set up some absolute brilliantly, from transition through midfield to attack. The guy is absolutely outstanding at it. I just think that maybe Steele and Ballard are a little bit too similar, but I think Ballard actually suits the way that Nizzy plays a little bit better. And I think that's probably why we would go that way. Mick, what about your midfield four?
Yeah, I can't disagree with the boys too much. Midfield's a bit of my bugbear. I like a midfield. I think a midfield always works well when you've got you got a hustler, you got a worker, and you got a creator. All right, not easy to say, not easy to have. So the guy gets in there and mixes with it all, and then you got the creator. Some players have got both. We don't have that. So Niz is great. Look, I'm a Niz fan. Ballard's been good again, obviously. It's funny, we get these guys that seem to go good when they come on at 60, but they can't start a game. We had one that's actually gone now, but it's a weird scenario. Theo Harris, dangerous, got to score a goal. And Canola, I think I just go with the boys and get back to what we probably started really early when we were doing all right. I think it opened is Ballard, Sammy, and Canola. I'm a Sammy's fan. He can score goals. He's a goal scoring midfielder, which we talked about before, Dan. It hasn't really happened, but it did when we're winning games. Sammy was knocking them in. He's dangerous. That's my midfield. Theo Harris coming on. Sash gives energy, as we said. Then Steely, maybe coming on if one of the boys gets, tired or a knock. We don't seem to lose much when Steely comes on later in the game. But as the boys said, I think they're a little bit too similar, him and Maxi. It's a funny scenario because it's, we look at what we need. We need a Montgomery and that's what we need. We need a Montgomery. Hey?
Still fit.
He played. Yeah, don't worry about that. I'm surprised he's not playing actually. But that's my midfield, mate. Yeah.
Yeah. No, you see him in the training games. He's just as competitive as he's Matty Simon the other day too. But anyway, that's a totally different subject. I totally agree with Sammy Silvera as well. I think the kid's outstanding. I think since he's come back, I was a bit like, come on, man, you've got to have a big season. And I think he has really lived up to it. I think he's just been, and I'm with you guys. To me, he needs to be staying on the park right up until the end now. He can just do that thing. He can just get that ball that particular time and create something. I just think he's been outstanding this year. And I totally agree with what you're saying about Dylan. He could well be this X factor for the last 5 games. One bloke none of us have actually mentioned, and Pete, I'll actually come to you first. Maresh has come back. Where's Mr. Maresh at for you?
Yeah, I mean it's tough because we know exactly what he brings, right? He's fantastically talented, brings that real flair, brings that passion as well, that samba flair. But I think that moment of perhaps petulance against Wellington is going to cost him for this run home. I think Monty's probably going to rely on the tried and true. Obviously, Cummings is a lock to start up top, as we said, until Leo's had some fantastic moments and some great link-up work with Cummings there as well. So, Maresh obviously will have to work very hard to try and get back into the side. I think is a lock for the bench though for me.
Oh, absolutely. And I think coming back off injury too, I mean, game time is vital. You don't get it on the training paddock. So I think slowly but surely he'll be brought back in and who knows, come the end of the season, he might be able to perform a few bits of magic that we might need in a couple of those games. Boys, 2 questions without notice, and you can let me know and explain them if you want to or just give names. Who is your player of the season so far? And who needs to stand up the most in the last 5 games? Dan, I'll come to you first.
Player of the season, I think it'd be a toss-up. It probably wouldn't be a toss-up, actually. I'd probably have to give it to Jason Cummings. When a striker scores that many goals, he's represented Australia, not only at the World Cup, but then got the call-up again for this. A lot of friendlies against Ecuador. He's had an outstanding season. He sits behind Jamie McLaren on the goal scorers list. I think he's been great for the club. There's probably been a couple of games where he hasn't been as involved as what he would have liked, but overall an outstanding season. The player for mine that has to step up, I think I'm going to have to go Josh Nisbet. I think if Josh Nisbet finds, not that he's been out of form, but I think if he finds that form that he was in last year, he was outstanding last year for the Central Coast Mariners. I think if he can find that sort of form again on the run in, it'll be a massive lift to that midfield and a massive lift to the rest of the team.
Absolutely. Pete?
Yeah, player of the season for me. I mean, it's hard to go past Jason Cummings, isn't it? But I'm actually going to go with Maxi Ballard because I can. I think he's gone so unheralded out of the centre of the park there. He's so underrated. And he has created a lot more than I think a lot of people have probably given him credit for as well. He's developing into a really, truly top quality box-to-box midfielder there. Player that needs to step up. I'm gonna say, because I know what he can deliver based on his, tail end of last season, Benny Nkololo. We need him to rediscover that sort of form. If he doesn't, though, you've got someone like Moresh that can come on, but Benny, a fit and firing Benny Nkololo is going to very much help us fire in on this run home.
Absolutely, and we can't wait for these last couple of games at home to you to yell out his name when he scores those goals. It's always a highlight there at Graham Park. Bugger it. Yeah, we're going there. Graham Park. Mick, player of the year so far, and who do we need to stand up for the last 5?
Well, I've got a little bit of inside knowledge because I'm doing the 3-2-1s, and I can tell you from our 3-2-1s, is a bit of a 3-horse race at the moment. And you've got Cummings, you've got Nisbet, and you've got Ballard. Before the red cards and stuff, and a bit, Kalchak was right up there at one stage. And then obviously before Garang went, he was absolutely killing it. So them are 3. If I had to pick one out of, it's hard to go past Jace. Niz polls well all the time because he does stuff, and Ballard's the same. So I'm probably with the boys. Good to see Camo get it, but he's not going to get it unless he starts scoring some more goals for me. Simple as that. Someone has to step up. Geez, I tell you what, maybe the bloke in the sticks at the back. I hope he doesn't hear me say that, but I'm just joking because you'll throttle me. That's just
300 gamer.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, we don't need our goalkeeper to step up because if we're doing that, we're in trouble. Someone to step up. That's a hard one. Tilio, there you go. Start banging some more goals in, brother. Tilio, that's who I want to step up.
Absolutely. And you stole my thunder there. I think, honestly, Sammy Silvera has been our best through the season. I just think there's been moments in games that he has just switched on. I just think his work rate has increased a lot. I think he's doing a lot of those little 1 or 2 percenters that he never used to do. I just think he's been outstanding. And I'm with you. I think Tulio, I think he's got to take the heat off Cummings. I think he needs to be able to become a lot more, or look a lot more dangerous, put a few in the back of the net, just give us that other option up top. Because I think if we're going into these 5 games and we're relying on Cummings to get all our goals, I think we're going to struggle because he's going to get pretty heavily marked, I would imagine. So they would be my guys. Before we wrap up, boys, Mick, we talked a bit about dancing with the Stars, mate. What is going on? What's tripping the light? Fantastic. What's going on?
All right, so it's a 10-year anniversary of Stars of the Central Coast for the Cancer Council. So they call it the All Stars, and I got asked to come back because I am actually I'm not the reigning, but I am a previous People's Choice winner.
Oh.
Thank you.
And the trophy. Pulls the trophy out. Wow.
That's the only trophy I got left. Mrs. Cyril, the football one's away. Not that I had that many. Yes, that's it. So it's a 10-year anniversary. We've got the boys from East Coast Juice and Zabara. Them 2 boys are doing it. We've got a doctor from Manarina. We got Kyla from Cakes from Kyla. She's doing it. Raising a lot of money. We all get a genre to do. We got a dance at Laycock Theatre. So popular this year, they're actually doing a live stream over to the Leeds Club.
Oh.
So people who can't get the tickets, they're going to do a live stream there. And we just had some fundraising. So on Saturday night, I've got the lounge there, and I've got some special people coming along to the lounge and maybe they got donated by Phoenix Fire. So we've got a double lounge at there, and a few people have put their hands in their pockets. Maybe you might be one. And have a bit of fun. And then on Easter Saturday, the 8th of April, I've got the Kick for Cancer, which I've run for the last 10 years at Pat Morley Oval. It'll be a better level run it.
Absolutely. No, they should be live stream straight to Graham Park. We're gonna change the name of the stadium. Imagine that up on the big screen.
Oh, for a Saturday afternoon.
How good would that be? Before the game, maybe that would be even better. Dan, if you were doing dancing, mate, what would be your dance of choice?
Oh, definitely rap hip hop, mate. For sure.
I was going to say. Yeah.
Definitely.
I was nearly going to pick it. Pete?
Is the Fall Over Stumble a reasonably well-known one? Either that or Norwegian black metal. I don't know, something like that.
The Mudgy Stomp.
The Mudgy Stomp. I saw the Mudgy Stomp.
I was going to say, I thought he would have gone to his tried and true But yeah, good looking forward to seeing that. And Dan doing a bit of popping and locking to a bit of breakdance and loving that, a bit of up rock. That takes me back to the school days as well. Look, boys, thanks so much for joining me tonight. It's been great fun as normal, having a bit of a chat about the Central Coast Mariners. Here's hoping to a big game this weekend, big result. Look forward to hearing Pete up there in the commentary box, letting us know when the goals go in and the cannon's about to go off. We appreciate that. Dan, looking forward to listening to you and the boys on the radio. Coast FM 963, don't forget the channel. And Mick, we will see, well, on big screens all around the state by the sounds of it, dancing his little backside off. So we can't wait to see that as well. Thanks, boys. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Marty. Thanks, guys.
And that is our show for today. A massive thank you once again to Pete Pryor, to Dan McCamley, and also to Mick Morley for giving up their time and coming to have a chat about the Central Coast Mariners. Massive game this weekend, 5 o'clock at home, Industry Group Stadium, Saturday night. Get your tickets through Ticketek. Some great deals that are going on if you check out the Mariners socials as well. Let's get to the game. Let's pack the place out. Get behind the boys. It's just a massive 3 points as we spoke about during our chat. Make sure you are there. Also, keep your eye out too for Mick Morley with the Stars of the Central Coast. It's the Cancer Council doing an absolutely awesome job. Let's get behind them as well. If you like the video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. I would greatly appreciate it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We are inching our way towards our 100th subscriber. How good would that be? It costs you nothing. They're my favourite words, to subscribe to the channel. So make sure you do that for me. That would be awesome. And press that notification bell because we have a stack of shows coming up over this next 4 to 5 weeks, hopefully into semi-final territory. And look forward to bringing them to you as well. That's been our show for today. Hope you really enjoyed it. Thanks for sticking out to the end. It's been the MartyMariner Show.